Okay, we're on Daf Gimel Amid Aleph. We're about 6 lines into the page. We're Abaya Omar. But let me go back and speak out what we did yesterday, because this will help. Also, I want to clarify a quick point. The Mishnah started off by saying Hakol Sheichtin Ushchitas Ekshera. So Hakol Sheichtin is including something. The problem is Sheichtin implies L'chachila, but then Shchitas Ekshera implies B'di'evet. So if it's talking about one statement, it doesn't work. So the Gemara, back and forth, but Bekitza, the Gemara brought down an opinion of, Rabbi Bar Ula. The Rabbi Bar Ula said the Mishnah is referring to someone who's Tameh. Hakol Sheichtin means someone who's Tameh is able to shecht Chullin, even if you makbid that Chullin nasal taras HaKodesh, meaning, even if you hold, so we're talking about Chullin, so you say, well, shech Chullin, you're Tameh, meaning you're L'chachil, if you're Tameh, you're allowed to shech Chullin, as long as you don't touch the animal, make sure they have a long knife. What's the chiddush? It's chulin. Who cares? The answer is it's chulin shenasal taras hakodesh, meaning I'm makbid on all my chulin to have the status of kodesh, which means halachically it has the status of kodesh. I'm not allowed to metamed. It's also for me metamed, but I'm allowed l'chachila to do it on condition that I don't touch it. Then the Gemara says that hakol sheichtin shchitas ekshera is a korban I'm able to shecht b'di'eved. L'chachil, we don't let you do it because lest you come to touch the animal, but the evidence is fine. Now, I want to just point out, then the Gemara said, isn't this already a Mishnah in Zvachim? So the Gemara says, okay, it's written twice. There's the Iker, and over here it's Agav, or Iba is saying over here's the Iker, and over there it's Agav, fine. Then the Gemara just had one last kasha, which is, you're so worried about the carbon, or the animal becoming tameh by you touching it, but the knife itself. And I just want to point this out, because the Gemara says, Charev, Ahu, Kecholol, that when it comes to Tamei Meis, all metal items have the status of whatever touched it. Meaning, normally you go down, there's a degradation, but when it comes to metal items, if the metal item touches a dead body, it doesn't become an avatuma, it remains the status of a viavosatuma. So over here, dead body's an aviavosatuma, I'm an avatuma, I grab the knife now is an avatuma weiter, and when it shechs the animal's a rishon, it's a problem. So I just wanted to point out, so Rashi, we said this yesterday, but Rashi says, you don't even need this. The truth is, this Gemara is just adding as a flourish to the kasha, but the truth is, even without this drasha, it's still a problem, because you have the dead bodies in Avi Avosatama, I'm the Avatama, the knife is a rishon, and it makes the meat a sheni. So that's a problem. It's still a problem. So the Gemara had two approaches. Either we're talking about a sheretz. Sheretz, we don't have this special halacha that metal remains the same status. So the sheretz is an avatuma. I touch it, I'm a rishon. A rishon is not able to metame kalim, so the kli is tahar. Or it's a dead body, but I didn't use a kli. I used a reed, which is not a kli in halacha. Fine. So I just want to point this out because this will make the daf a lot easier at the very end. That's the first answer of 6. We're going to do 5 more answers today, very, very quickly. I want to point out what the problem with each answer is as we go, and then at the end of the Gemara, it'll be a little easier, because the Gemara is going to say, they don't like Abaya, they don't like... The issue with Rabbi Bar Ula is 2 things. You have to make presumptions for these questions to work. That entire flow, there's 2 issues with it. First of all, it's assuming that Chullin Shanasu Al Taras HaKodesh has the status of Kachim. If you don't believe that if I'm makbid on Chullin, who cares? That whole premise is like, Chullin shenasu al taras hakodesh. If you makbid on Chullin has the same status as a carbon, so I need the Mishnah to tell me that I'm allowed to. If you don't believe that's a thing, which there are Tanaim that believe there's no such thing as Chullin shenasu al taras hakodesh. There's no such thing. Chullin is Chullin. So if you believe that, first of all, that whole question, the whole vart falls apart. Secondly, there's one other issue. It's a tiny issue, but the issue is we did point out that this is a Mishnah in Zvachim. So you had to say, well, it's written twice. One's Iker and one's Tafel. You could not like that. Okay, those are 2 reasons that answer is not the best. Let's keep going. The Gemara now gives a second answer. Abaya Omar Hachi Ketani. The Mishnah is not talking about Tami, but rather Hakol Sheichtin Afilu Kuti. Now, what were the Kutim? So the history of it was there was a king of Ashur when he got rid of the 10 tribes. He brought in the Kuta people to fill up the land so it wouldn't be empty. They were Goyim. Now, when they got to Eretz Yisrael, there were lions that started attacking them, so they decided this is because they're not keeping the Jewish law, and they converted. It's a shaila in the Tanoim throughout Shas, whether the Kutim are Jews, or it's a Shem of... They're either Goyim, and it's not a good Gerus, or it's a good Gerus, but they weren't so from. What were they from? They were weird. When it comes to written Torah, they were super from, but they didn't believe in the oral Torah. So the Gemara goes with the presumption that Kutim are Jews. That's this Mahalach. By the way, that's another problem. If you believe the kutim are goyim, this entire teretz falls apart. But Abaye says, Hakochi katani, Hakol sheichtim afilu kuti. A kuti could shecht. Why? Because they're more makbid in shchita than we are. They're super, super from. Okay, so that's lichachila. They're able to shech lichachila. But ma'amed v'amurim kishi yisol oimid al gavav. But when are they allowed to shech lichachila? When there's a Jew there, a mashkiach tamidi, meaning a Jew has to be a mashkiach there always. Avol yotze, we'll get to in a second. Avol yotze v'nichnas. But if the mashkiach is yotze v'nichnas, lo yishchot, they're not allowed lichachila to shecht. See, what's the problem? Why not? I'll tell you why. While kutim are very, very frum when it comes to shchita for themselves, they have no problem giving other people, other Jews, shchita that's kind of shvach. Why? What's the issue with me giving you meat that's not kafi a good hechsher? What's the problem with that? What's the lav in the Torah that says you're not allowed to cause lifnei iver lo siti mishal? If you don't believe in the oral Torah, lifnei iver lo siti mishal means do not place a stumbling block before a blind person. They didn't believe there was any isser of giving a mishal to a yid. So while they could shecht, you need a mashkiach there watching, because if something goes wrong, they will have no problem feeding it to another. They won't eat it themselves, God forbid, but they'll feed it to another person because they don't believe in lifnei iver, because they don't have the oral Torah. So he says, so lichachila they could shecht if there's a mashkiach there watching the whole time. Aval yoitzev v'nichnas, but if it's just yoitzev v'nichnas, by the way, making an assumption that yoitzev v'nichnas is not a great hashkacha, that means the mashkiach is coming in and out without telling you at the intervals. Lo yishchot lichachila, you shouldn't shecht because yoitzev v'nichnas is only b'di'evet, but v'im shachat. Now let's say they did shecht with Yotzev v'nichnas. The Gemara assumes Yotzev v'nichnas is not a good mashkiach. You need a mashkiach tamidi. You need someone there the whole time. So what do? So then choytich kizayis basav v'noisel. You have to take a piece of the meat, give it to him, and say, will you eat it? If he eats it, that means it's kosher. If he doesn't eat it, that means something went wrong. So then b'di'evet lo yachlu aser lachol b'shchitasa. So that's the b'di'evet. The b'di'evet is there's no mashkiach tamidi there. Then you have to do the ceremony of giving him a piece of meat. Then the Mishnah continues. That's always going to be the same. Are always a problem because they're not competent in shechting. Good. Keep going in the Mishnah. We still have the same problem. If you remember, we had this yesterday. The Mishnah has two halachas, l'chachila b'diavad, then it has cheir shayta v'kata, and then it says v'kulan with all of them. If there's someone watching, it's fine. And we always had the problem with what's v'kulan. Pashtus, the way you read it, it's a continuation. It's referencing the cheir shayta v'kata, and the problem is that it shouldn't say v'kulan. It should say v'im. The lashon is too extra. If you're continuing a topic, you don't say v'kulan. So there's three options of what v'kulan is referencing. Cheir shayta v'kata, it's not going to work. It must be one of the first two cases, which is a kuti with a mashkiach tmidi, a kuti with a mashkiach yotze v'nichnas. And the problem is, how does v'kulan work on any of it? Says the Gemara, v'kulan sheshachtu, that if there is someone watching, it's kosher. I don't understand. What's v'kulan going on? It can't be cheir shayta v'katan. It's going to be the same taina for all six pshatim. V'kulan cannot be a reference to cheir shayta v'katan because then it shouldn't say v'kulan. It should say v'im. So that's out. So then it must be if there's a kuti mashkiach tamidi. But then I don't understand. So if there's a mashkiach tamidi, it's kosher l'chachila. But v'kulan, if there's a mashkiach, it doesn't. The words don't work. It says the Gemara. It doesn't work. Kasha, that doesn't work. That's a kasha. By the way, spoiler, that's the reason not to like this part. It ends off with a kasha. The kulan doesn't really work. By the way, the Mefarshim point out it's not the biggest shaila in the world. You could just say it's a reference to Cheir Shayta V'katan, and it's just a little verbose. But okay, but
we're trying to put in words. Why can't we just say v'in is one of the missing words?
Because we're not changing the syntax. We're just saying it's referencing cases we haven't seen. We haven't changed the lashon yet. I guess going to the point, I guess it's the Gemara would rather fill in cases than actually change the lashon. The point is, it's a kasha. Okay, now this was Abaya's pshat, because Abaya held that a mashkiach yotze v'nichnas is no good. So if there's a mashkiach timidi, then l'chachil it's fine. Yotze v'nichnas no good, you have to give him a piece of meat. Rava doesn't like that. I'll say it outside, I'll say it inside. Rava doesn't like that because Rava believes that a mashkiach yotze v'nichnas should be fine. And he proves it from the laws of yayin nesach. If you leave a guy with bottles of wine around and you're yotze v'nichnas, it's fine. So if it's yotze v'nichnas is good for that, why can't it be good for a person shechting? What's the problem? Rava believes yotze v'nichnas is fine. So Rava has the same shot of Abaya, that is a kuti, but instead of saying l'chachila is where it's a mashkiach tmidi, the l'chachila is yotze v'nichnas. So it's Rava is almost identical. He just, instead of the lachachila being mashkiach tamidi, the lachachila is mashkiach yotzev nechnas. Almost. And then b'diavad is where there is no yotzev nechnas, you have to give him a piece of meat. It's almost the same. He just believes that yotzev nechnas is legit. Yeah?
So when Abaye says that the chulon
That's going to be the same problem. The Chullin is a kasha on him, and it's going to be a kasha on Rava also. Yeah. No. I said Rav and Abaye are kemat identical. The only difference being Abaye was referencing Yotzev Nichnas being b'di'evan, and Rava holds Yotzev Nichnas is l'chachila. Rava, Yotzev Nichnas l'chachila. Isn't Yotzev Nichnas a perfectly good hashgacha v'hatanan? Don't we say when it comes to yayin nesach, hamaniach ayvik kechav b'chanusay? If you're a wine seller and you leave a goyish worker in your store, Yisrael Yotzev Nichnas, and you Yotzev Nichnas, mutter. It's mutter because he won't touch the wine. So you see, Yotzev Nichnas is a good hashgacha. So why are you saying that it doesn't work for shchita? So Abai responds, no. Hasa mikatani meniach hamaniach. First of all, who says that that's l'chachila? The Mishnah is saying, if you left a guy in your store, who says that that's a l'chachila thing to do? Maybe Yotzev Nichnas has always been the Eved, and it's never a good hashgacha. Oh, the Mishnah in Avodah Zarah says it's fine for Yayin Nesach. Maybe that's also been the Eved. It's not a raya. So the Gemara says, okay, El Mehacha. Rabbi says, good point. I'll tweak it. A raya is from here. Ein hashomer tzarich liyis yoshev v'meshamer. When it says a watchman who's guarding wine in a wine cellar, he does not have to sit there the whole time. Clear as day that Yotzev Nichnas is a perfectly good hashgacha. Now, by the way, one quick point. The Gemara at the end of the daf will point out, you could argue there's a difference between a guy in a store where you're concerned he's touching it and Hakuti actually shechting, like he's in the process of doing it for sure. Over here, it's like maybe Yotzev Nichnas is like, I don't even know if there's an issue here. It's just I left the guy over there. There's wine is over here. So okay, Yotzev Nichnas is l'chachila fine. Rava is now extending that to all cases of hashgacha. You could argue there's a difference between I don't know if he touched the wine to over here he's shechting. I have to make sure he shechts properly because he'll give me the food if it's no good because he doesn't believe the lifnei iver. You could argue there is levels of hashgacha. Rava clearly doesn't believe in that. The Gemara is going to point out Abaya could argue. He doesn't argue over here, but that could be an argument that he can make. The Gemara will point at the end of that. I'm saying it's weird because the Gemara lists all these 6 things, then the Gemara now picks holes which you'd think it would do it as we go.
Lifnei iver is not also the only thing that prevents someone from stopping another Jew from doing something bad.
I think it is. I think it's the only issur deraisa of giving. I can give you chazer. What's the issur? It's issur for you to eat chazer, but for me to give you chazer, this is lifnei iver pashas. I'm not aware of any other biblical prohibition. Misayeh is derabanan. I'm saying pashas. It's the only issur deraisa is to not cause a Jew to stumble. I'm not aware of any other one. I mean, you're a jerk, but there's no issur in that, right?
Here the shomer is a kuti or is just a regular person?
No, a Jew. The point is, the Jew is a shomer. The Jew is a shomer, and he's a mashkiach. So says the Gemara, so Elam Rava, so Rava says, therefore, I'm going to change the pshat slightly. I'm going to keep it that it's a kuti, but instead of l'chachila being mashkiach t'midi, the l'chachila will be Yotzev Nichnas. Elam Rava hachikdani hakol shaychtin v'afilu kuti. B'amed v'om k'shi Yotzev Nichnas. L'chachila is Yotzev Nichnas. Aval bo motza shachad. What's b'di'evid where there's no mashkiach at all? He just shechted it with no one around. So what's b'di'evid? Give him a piece of meat. If he eats it good, b'di'evid. If not, then not at all. Chaytech k'zayis basar noisenloi. Aval muta lechel b'shchitasai. Lo yachal asal lachem shchitasai. Then the Mishnah keeps going. Again, always out. Good. Now, same issue. The kulon you didn't fix. The kulon is, again, it can't be referenced to Chesed V'Katan because then the syntax is no good. And what's the b'di'evid? You just got finished telling me that Yotzev Nichnas is enough. And if there's no... So what do you mean? The kulon, if there's a mashkiach, then it's fine. What are we talking about? We already addressed mashkiachim. It doesn't work. The kulon sheshachtu ahai. Ilim Chesed V'Katan alakoi. V'yishachim baile. Elakuti ha'amrit afil Yotzev Nichnas shach l'chachila. Kasha, again, kasha. That's a second reason why Rava... this pshat also of Rava is a little bit shver. Again, this is... Abaye said a pshat, Rava didn't like it, so he tweaked it. Comes Rav Ashi, remember the names. Rava just said a pshat, referencing Abaye said a pshat, he didn't like it, so Rava said his pshat, ends with the same kasha. Then Rav Ashi, he says no. We're talking about something else. Hachi Ketani. Hakol Sheichtin, L'chachila is Afilu Yisrael Mummer. Okay, you have a Jew who's a Mummer. A Jew who's a Mummer means that he's not makbid on kashrus. He's not shomer kashrus. Now, you could have different reasons why someone's not makbid on kashrus. There's called a mummer l'tei avon and a mummer l'hachiz. A mummer l'hachiz means he's doing it because he hates God. Like he's not, a mummer l'hachiz, he would choose pork over meat, even if the price is the same. Like it has nothing to do with it. It's not a savings issue. He's fighting. That's very bad. That's, they can never be trusted. We're talking about a mummer l'tei avon. A mummer l'tei avon means that He's someone who ideally would want to be makbid on kashrus, but he can't afford it, or in his mind he can't afford it. So non-kosher meat is cheaper. If kosher meat was cheaper, of course he would go with kosher meat. But he doesn't really care that much. He'll take, price and other factors in. The halacha is he's allowed to shech l'chachila under what condition? Now that's a chiddush. You say, how could he shech l'chachila? Ba'afil yisrael mummer lamai le'echol nevel s'teyavon. Where do we find that they're trusted? Oh, you see, he's an interesting thing, because he does care about kashrus a little bit, but not enough that I would trust him. Because at the end of the day, he'll eat non-kosher if need be. So what's the halacha? K'derava. Like Rava said, Da'amar Rava, Yisrael, Rava said a halacha, not related to our discussion, just as an aside, Mummer oichel nevel satiyava, such a Jew, who again will eat non-kosher out of convenience, go to the next page, Boidik sakin v'naisenlai. If you examine the knife, meaning, if he just shechs without examining the knife, we don't trust him. Again, we're not talking about him cooking, we're talking about him shechting. Would he care if something went wrong with the shechita? Not really, because he doesn't really care that much. He's not going to do it on purpose. He's not going to l'chachila mess up just to mess you over. He's not going to do that. Like if someone is momer l'chachis, someone who's fighting against God, you give him a knife, it could be perfect. He'll bedafka mess it up. We're not talking about a guy. He's not a bad guy. He's got a good heart. If you check the knife, it's l'chachila fine. If you don't check the knife, then it's not l'chachila fine, because we don't say, well, why would a sheichet? He would never use a nakun knife. He probably would. Meaning, if he shechted and then realized the knife had a nick on it, he's not going to tell anybody. He doesn't really care that much. But if you give him a knife before, he's not going to mess up on purpose. So lichachila is if you give him the knife before and you checked it before. So if you checked it before, Rava says in general, not for our discussion, but Rava says in general, if I have a good knife and I check it before, right, they do the nail test, they test on the nail, it's good, no nicks, you can give it to a mummer l'teyavon, and he could shecht it, lichachila. But let's say I didn't check the knife. I walk into the shechita house and he's just shechting already. So now is the situation like this. You check afterwards. Check the knife afterwards. If there's no nick, that means there was no nick at the time, then it's fine b'diavad. If there is a nick, then it's an issue. Says the Gemara, if the knife is perfect, free of nicks, then b'diavad is fine. One interesting point to point out, though, Rav Ashi is basing this concept that lichachila you can check a knife and give it to a mummer. Who was the one who authored that original statement? He says Kidder Rava. So it's interesting that Rava himself, when he explains our Mishnah, does not go with this rote, even though he's the author of this statement. And the Gemara at the end of the daf will point that out. Why wouldn't, if Rava wrote this, perfect. So the Gemara is going to answer, you're right, that is actually Rava's pshat. I thought Rava just had a back and forth about a kuti. The answer is no. Rava was saying to Abaya. Abaya said his pshat about the kuti with the mashkiach Yotzev Nichas. Then Rava's like, Yotzev Nichas is fine. Rava reinterpreted Abaya's shita. Not that that's actually a Rava's interpretation of the Mishnah. Rava's just saying, listen, you want to talk about a kuti and Yotzev Nichas, you got to tweak it because Yotzev Nichas is fine. But Rava would actually go with this pshat because this is something he actually authored. So the lechachila is if you check the knife before, but the evidence is if you only check the knife afterwards. Then chutz b'chir shetvekatan dafid yamanal shem yisha shem yisha again the chir shetvekatan can't shech ever. Now, same issue. V'kulan, same problem. Can't be chir shetvekatan. And what's going to be v'kulan? That if you're watching, let me ask you a question. If I don't check the knife again, the kulan means lechachila. I'm supposed to check the knife, right? Before. B'diavad, I check the knife afterwards. Would a mashkiach help at all? No. Because if you check the knife before, it's l'chachila. If you check the knife after, it's b'diavad. If the knife's not here, a mashkiach can't help you. Because a mashkiach will not be able to see a tiny nick on a blade. So what does it mean in the Mishnah? V'kulan, if there's a mashkiach, it's fine b'diavad. A mashkiach will not help in our discussion. You either need to check the knife before or to check the knife afterwards. If you don't do that, a mashkiach will help you nothing. Because a mashkiach will not be able to see a nick on a knife. Meaning if the knife is already shipped away, Mashiach is not going to help you. So kasha, we're going to end off with a kasha on that as well. So we have 3 of the 6 mahalchim so far, end off with a kasha on Bekulan. Says the Gemara, Bekulan, ashachtan ahai, ilim echershet v'katan, Allah koiv v'shachtan v'boile. Ela Yisrael mummer, ida b'day sak v'noisla. If you check the knife before, hamer l'chachila. It's fine l'chachila. Ed loiba, and if you check the knife afterwards, ida is l'sakin. If the knife's around, live the kesakin. You have to check it afterwards. And ida lekesakin, and if the knife is not around after the shchita, ki achirim roi noisa me'avad, then what is mashkiach going to help? Dilma b'sakin beguma shachat. A mashkiach is not going to notice if there's a nick in the knife. Kasha, it's a kasha. The third mahalach that ends off with a kasha. Comes a fifth mahalach actually. Fifth mahalach. Ravina. Ravina says, Hakol sheichten, Hakol mumchen sheichten. Anyone who is a mumcha. Okay, basically when it comes to shchita, there's a mumcha. A mumcha is very simple. A mumcha is someone who passed all the tests. He wrote a book on it. He's very, very learned. Now, the thing about a mumcha is that you could be a big Talmid Chacham, but until you do it, there's always a slight concern that you might be a little queasy, you might pass out. Misalif. Therefore, what they would do is outside of taking the tests, you would have to shech the first 2 or 3 times in front of people, and they would have to just basically watch to make sure there's like theoretical knowledge and then there's practical knowledge. Don't do that. Don't look at me. I have a real job. Ravina Amar Hachi Katani. Hakol Sheichtin, Hakol Mumchen Sheichtin. Lichachila is a mumcha, meaning you never have to actually do it. If you pass the test, lichachila you could check the first time. And we're not concerned about passing out. That's lichachila. Mumchen afal pishen muchzakin. By the way, that's a problem with this pshat, because you could argue, if you believe that knowledge without practical hands-on knowledge is not acceptable, then this pshat doesn't work. This is saying like this: if you pass the test, if you have perfect knowledge, you write the sefer on it, lichachila fine. Even if you've never done it before. Ba'medvum, so what? That's lichachila. What's b'diavad? Ba'medvum is shiyoidim by sheyedei loymer hilchos shchita. Aval ein yedei by sheyedei loymer hilchos shchita lo yishchait. V'imshachat by denoisai. Meaning, but let's say you have a situation where the person has never had hand-on experience, and he's never really passed the test that much. He basically just started shechting. So then b'diavad is afterwards we ask him some halachas. We ask him like this: Boidik sakiv v'noisle. We check the knife. If he could check the knife. Yeah, we examine him after that. Boidik sakin, you could check the knife afterwards. But if you didn't examine the knife, meaning the lichachila is if he has proven knowledge. B'diavad is where I don't know if he has knowledge. If I check afterwards we start asking him shaylas, or afterwards I start checking the knife and I make sure there's no nicks, then fine. So the point is, you see from this pshat that lichachila, you don't need hands-on experience. It's all a matter of knowledge. So if I know that he has knowledge before, it's lichachila. If I find that he has knowledge afterwards, it's b'diavad.
Anyone. Everyone falls into that category.
No, because not everyone will pass.
Like,
Not everyone will pass the test afterwards.
because you're a mumcha, now we're going to be extra stringent on you than a regular Joe. Isn't that what it's saying?
Im yedei loy mehilchos shchita, meaning he shechs, right? He shechs. I don't know anything about him. No hands-on experience, nothing. Afterwards, no, he's not. He's a dude. I mean, he might have officially he has a tudah, but I don't know. Meaning like this: you have a guy who has a tudah, right? They all have a tudah. So they all have like officially shchita knowledge. We don't care about hands-on experience. We just care about knowledge. If I know before going in, this guy is an expert, perfectly fine. L'chachila. No hands-on experience, don't care. Never done it before, it's fine. The case is he shechs it. We don't know anything about him. So afterwards we say, Im yodei lomer hilchos shchita. We ask him, hey, can you please tell us some halachas? And he just starts rattling off. Okay, he's fine. Then mutalachem shchita asay. V'im lav asalachem shchita asay. Meaning, so it's all knowledge based. If I know that he has knowledge before, it's l'chachila. If I only find out afterwards, it's b'diavad. Perfect. Again, we don't care about hands-on experience. We're not concerned about passing out. Chutz b'chereshet v'katan. Let's keep going. Chutz b'chereshet v'katan. I feel the Evan Amiloi. Again. Shem yidrishu, shem yishu, shem yachlidu. Again, the same part. Now, what's the v'kulon? Now we have to figure out the v'kulon. V'kulon sheshachtu ahai. Ile b'chereshet v'katan alakoi v'imshachtu mibayle. Again, the kulon can't be referenced to chereshet v'katan. So what is the kulon dealing with? El she'ein mumchin. B'bayt genoisei sagi. The answer is the less lakam and deliver the kid. Oh, so meaning like this: the b'diavad where a mashgiach would help is if I don't know anything about him before and he's not around. Meaning the shaila is, what do I need a mashgiach for? Rav Kulon, if there's a mashgiach, it's fine. I don't understand what you need a mashgiach for. I don't know anything about him before, so we said after we shecht, sit him down and faher him. The answer is he took off. He's gone. I can't ask him anymore. So then, if there was a mashgiach who watched, and the mashgiach said, "Listen, I'm telling you, he did a good job. I'm telling you, he did a good job. He wasn't shebi yisha, yamidrasu. That is fine b'diavad." Okay. So that's the first time we've actually answered B'kulon in a while. Good. Now this is making an assumption that all that matters is knowledge, not experience. We're not concerned about passing out. The Ikad Amri, but some have a different version of Ravina. So this would be the 6th Mahalach of Ravina. That it's a slightly different version, and that is Hachikdani. Hakol Sheichtin, Hakol Muchzakin Sheichtin, the opposite. What matters most is experience. If he's muchzik, if he's done this before, meaning he's been shechting for years, he's been doing this for a very long time, then shechtin. By the way, you don't even have to be the biggest Talmid Chacham. According to this, it's not the knowledge, it's the hands-on experience that matters. If he is a shaykh and he's been doing this for 10, 15 years, then he's fine. Then it's l'chachila. What is it? When is l'chachila? When he shechted in front of us 2 or 3 times and didn't faint, meaning he has hands-on experience. But if he's never shechted in front of us, meaning if he doesn't have hand-on experience, then he's not allowed to shech l'chachila because he might pass out. But if afterwards he shechted and he says that I did not pass out, then it's shchitas kshera. So it's the same shot with the first one, but instead of hands knowledge, it's hands-on experience. Again, chutz mecher shet v'kad nafil yamin alvei shem yisha shem yicha shem yidu, and v'kulon. The Gemara says, again, this is going to be the same answer. When is there a situation mashkiach will help? I don't understand. If I know that he has experience before, it's l'chachila, and if not, then just ask him, did you pass out? And the answer is, he took off, so there's nobody here, but if there's mashkiach who said that I watched him and he did a good job, then it's kosher. That's the same answer. Just one second. So the Gemara says, just to finish up the daf, the Gemara now, we've done 6 approaches. The Gemara now will point out why each one doesn't like the other one. I think I pointed them out as we went along, most of them. The only thing that's challenging is it's constantly referencing names. You have to remember what those names said. But Gemara says, Ravina v'Rab Bar Ula, Ravina, which is the last pshat, and Rab Bar Ula, which is the first pshat, they don't like the middle 3 mahalchim. Again, Rab Bar Ula is the first, then you have Rabbiya, then you have Rava, then you have Ravashi, then you have 2 versions of Ravina. Ravina is the end, Rab Bar Ula the first. They don't like the middle 3 because if you remember, the middle 3 all ended with kulan is kasha, kasha, kasha. They all end. The Gemara itself said that none of these pshatim, the middle 3 pshatim, are not able to translate to explain why the vekulan is. So they all don't like those middle 3. Loy amri mishum de kasha vekulan, because we said vekulan is a kasha. Good. Now let's go through each one. Why do each one not like each other? No, kula kirabba bar ula amri. Now they all don't like the first one. Remember what was the first one? It was at Tumah with Chullin naso ataras hakodesh, and then b'diavad is tamei shechting a carbon. And I pointed out that one of the issues is that this is a mission zvachim. So the Gemara had 2 answers. Zvachim is the ikar and this is agav, or this is the ikar and zvachim is agav. So the Gemara says they didn't like that. Why? According to the approach, the version of the Gemara, that this is the ikar source, that a tamei person is not allowed to shech l'chachila a carbon, because we're afraid he'll touch it. Adarabba, they don't like that pshat because they say, why would the ikar about the laws of karbanos be Maseches Chullin and not Maseches Zvachim? Don't like that pshat. So okay, what about the other pshat? That the ikar is in Zvachim, and over Chullin it's agav. The Gemara says, "Lahachish damar hasam ikar, hacha tani tami Chullin, tanami tami Gdashin." They say, "Tami b'Chullin guvali yitzurchalei." They have a different issue. The whole pshat is predicated that the ikar chiddush is that someone who's tamei is allowed l'chachila to shecht Chullin, and we said, isn't Chullin fine? Chullin shenasa ataras hakodesh. If you don't believe that that's a thing, there are Tanaim that believe there's no such thing as Chullin and aso ataras hakodesh. You don't have to, even if you're makbid, doesn't have any of the halachas that are restringencies. So if you don't believe that Chullin aso ataras hakodesh, the whole vart falls apart. So it says the Gemara, tamei b'Chullin guvli yitzurchalei, Chullin shenasa ataras hakodesh, lav ki kodesh nami. They don't believe that you have to be makbid on Chullin shenasa ataras hakodesh. So if you believe that, that's the first pshat. Keep going. That's out. Kula Ravina le'amri. Now let's go with Ravina. Let's go to the last one. Ravina, the last one was that it's a that lichachila. The first version is knowledge matters, not experience. The second version was experience and not knowledge. Okay. Kula Ravina le'amri. Why don't they like that? According to the first version of Ravina, which is all that matters is knowledge, is like, written tests. They would say, well, I don't think that makes sense because most sheikhtim are knowledgeable. So the whole flow is like, if I know he has knowledge, then it's l'chachila. If I don't know he has knowledge, it's b'diavad. That's not true. Most sheikhtim, meaning according to Ravina's first pshat, every single time you go into like a shachtais, you have to go into like a place to buy meat, it's all b'diavad. Because I don't know if they have knowledge. That's not, what's the pshat? The answer is, Rav sheikhtim are knowledgeable. So your whole pshat, if you believe Rosh Shechtim are knowledgeable, your whole pshat doesn't work anymore. It's like, oh, this l'chachila, but it's not true. It's all l'chachila. And then the second version, the second version that says that it's not a matter of knowledge, it's a matter of hands-on experience. Meaning that if you have hands-on experience, it's l'chachila. If not. Why? Why is it b'diavad if you don't have hands-on experience? We're afraid you're going to pass out. This Gemara says we're not concerned about passing out. I don't pass out this Gemara. That's a personal thing. Constantly concerned about it. Anyway, so the Gemara says, Rava loy amar ka Abaya. Okay, now let's go to the second shot. The second vert of the Gemara was Abaya, that lichachila, it's a kuti, yoitzev, mashkiach tamidi. And then b'diavad is no mashkiach tamidi. Rava loy amar ka Abaya kikushya. Now, we already know the issue with Abaya is because Rava proved from those mishnayos in Yayin Nesach, in Avodah Zarah, that a mashkiach yotzev and nichnas is perfectly fine. So that's the issue with that shot. Abaya lo yamakarava. Now, how does Abaya respond? By the way, it just says a kasha. Rava said, Abaya said Yotzev and Nichlas is no good. Rava said there are mishnayos that say that it works for Yayin Nesach. So how does Abaya respond to that? So the Gemara says that I mentioned before, Hasam le naga, hacha naga. Over there it's different. Over there you don't know that he even touched the wine b'chlal. So Yotzev and Nichlas is enough when you don't even know there's an issue. But over here he's actually shechting. He's actually doing it. So I have to make sure that he's doing it properly. Yotzev and Nichlas is not going to help. Okay. Rav Ashi lo yamer ketervayu. Now, why does Rav Ashi, who said that it's a pshat about a mummer le te'avon, why did he not like the kuti? Because again, the whole thing with the kuti is assuming they're Jews. If they're Jews, then they could be sheichtim. If they're goyim, they can't shecht. Rav Ashi holds that kutim are goyim. He says, "Ksavar kuti geirei aroyas." They were just geirim because of lions. They weren't actually Jews. So if you believe they're goyim, then obviously the whole part falls apart. Now, the Gemara has one last point, and the Gemara says, and this I mentioned, Abaya lo yomer Rav Ashi. Now, why do they not like Rav Ashi, who says that it's a mummer li te'avon? Because lo svir le hadarava, because he doesn't believe. Again, Rav Ashi's whole pshat that you're allowed lichachila, a mummer li te'avon is able to shecht. Who said that statement? That was Rava. Rava said that if you give the knife to him before, check the knife before, it's lichachila. If you check the knife afterwards, it's b'diavad. Abaya doesn't believe in that. Abaya says a mummer can't shecht. Never, a mummer can never shech l'chachila. It doesn't matter whether you check the knife before or afterwards. But here's the last kash, and this I pointed out when we did it. Rav Ashi's pshat is built on a statement of Rava. So why would Rava explain the Mishnah in a different way when he was the author of the version of Rav Ashi? Rav Ashi's whole pshat in the Mishnah was based on a statement from Rava. So why wouldn't Rava go with that? So the Gemara says, Elo Rava, my time why didn't Rava say his own pshat? And the answer is, you're right, he did. I thought he had a different mahalach with a kuti. Lidvar of Abaya ka'amar v'leilo svirle. Rava was saying to Abaya, listen, I have my own mahalach because I can explain it with a mummer or whatever. You're explaining it with a kuti that's a mashkiach to me. I'm just telling you. I don't hold like any of this b'chlal. I'm telling you, Yotzev and Nichnas is enough. So when Rava said that pshat, that wasn't actually his pshat. He was interpreting Abaya's pshat properly. I will stop here.